Whispers of the dark. They say every town has its secrets, its ghost stories whispered by kids around campfires. But in my town, Blackwood Creek, the story isn't a whisper, it's a scream. A scream that rips through the air every single evening, right as the sun bleeds out below the horizon. I moved here about a year ago. I was looking for peace, for a quiet place to escape the city's relentless noise. Blackwood Creek seemed perfect. Nestled in a valley, surrounded by ancient woods, it was the picture of tranquility. The locals were friendly enough, though a little reserved. They'd smile, nod, but their eyes held a certain weariness, a shadow I couldn't quite place. My first evening, I was unpacking boxes in my small rented cottage on the edge of town. The sunset was breathtaking, painting the sky in shades of orange and deep purple. Then it happened. A sound unlike anything I'd ever heard pierced the silence. It wasn't human, not entirely. It was a high-pitched, guttural shriek that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was filled with an ageless pain, a raw, desperate agony that made the hairs on my arms stand up. It lasted for maybe 10 seconds, then vanished, leaving a silence that felt heavier, more profound than before. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I ran outside, expecting to see emergency lights, people rushing out of their homes, but there was nothing. The street was empty. Lights were on in the houses, but the curtains were drawn tight. It was as if the world had collectively held its breath and then simply moved on. The next day, I went to the local diner, hoping for an explanation. I casually mentioned the strange noise I'd heard. The cheerful waitress who had just served me my coffee suddenly went rigid. Her smile vanished. "That's just the wind in the trees, honey," she said, her voice flat. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I tried asking the old man reading a newspaper at the counter. He just grunted, "You get used to it," and turned a page with a sharp snap. It was a wall of silence. No one wanted to talk about the scream. They called it the gloaming wail, or simply the wail. I learned this from scraps of conversation I overheard, from the fearful glances exchanged between neighbors as dusk approached. I learned that every evening, without fail, the town shuts down. Doors were locked, windows were shuttered, and no one, absolutely no one, was outside when the sun went down. This ritualistic fear fascinated and terrified me. As a journalist, or at least a former one, my curiosity was a beast that needed feeding. I started digging. The town library was my first stop. The librarian, a stern-faced woman named Mrs. Albright, watched me like a hawk as I sifted through dusty town records. The official histories were useless. They spoke of founding fathers and prosperous logging industries, but tucked away in a box of uncatalogued personal journals, I found it. The diary of a man named Silas Blackwood, one of the town's founders, dated 1788. His early entries were filled with hope for the new settlement, but then the tone shifted. He wrote of a dispute with the native tribes who had lived in this valley for centuries. The settlers wanted the land, the timber. The tribe refused to leave their ancestral home, a sacred grove deep in the woods. Silas's writing grew frantic. He described a raid, a massacre. The settlers, in their greed, had attacked the tribe's village at dusk. In his last, barely legible entry, he wrote about the tribe's shaman. As she lay dying, surrounded by her people, she didn't curse the settlers with famine or plague. She cursed them with her grief. Her final agonizing scream, he wrote, would echo through the valley for eternity, a constant reminder of their crime. A scream of pure, undiluted sorrow that would forever haunt the twilight. The curse wasn't one of physical harm. It was a psychological torture. The scream didn't kill you. It just reminded you every single day of a terrible secret buried beneath the town's foundations. It was a legacy of pain passed down through generations. Knowing the story didn't bring me peace, it made it worse. Now, when I heard the scream, I didn't just hear a sound. I heard the dying shaman. I felt her loss, her rage, her unbearable grief. The sound burrowed into my mind, replaying in my quiet moments. The weariness I'd seen in the townspeople's eyes started to appear in my own reflection. The silence of the town was a pact. They didn't talk about it because acknowledging it gave it power. They tried to live around it, to pretend it was just the wind. But it was a cancer, eating away at the town's soul from the inside out. The children here didn't play outside in the evenings. Teenagers didn't have late-night hangouts. Life was lived between sunrise and sunset. I became obsessed. I spent my days hiking in the woods, trying to find the sacred grove Silas Blackwood had written about. I felt that if I could find the source, maybe I could understand it. Maybe I could do something. The locals warned me against it. Some things are better left buried, the old man from the diner told me one day, his voice unusually soft. The woods. They remember. I didn't listen. One afternoon, guided by a hand-drawn map from Silas's diary, I pushed deeper into the forest than ever before. The woods grew denser, the light dimmer. The air became heavy, still. I found it in a small, unnaturally quiet clearing. There were no ruins, no markers. Just a circle of ancient gnarled oak trees. In the center was a single, large, flat stone, covered in moss and faded carvings I couldn't decipher. This was it. The air here felt wrong. It was thick with a silent, suffocating sorrow. I felt like an intruder, a trespasser on hallowed ground. I checked my watch. The sun was beginning to set. Panic flared in my chest. I was miles from town, and dusk was falling. I turned to run, but my feet felt rooted to the spot. It was as if the clearing itself was holding me there. The sky began to burn with sunset colors. And I waited. The silence was absolute. No birds, no insects. Just the thumping of my own blood in my ears. Then it began, but it wasn't a distant sound this time. It started as a low hum, vibrating up from the ground, through the soles of my shoes and into my bones. The moss-covered stone in the center of the clearing began to glow with a faint ethereal light. The hum grew into a wail, and the sound was no longer just in the air. It was inside my head. It was a chorus of voices of men, women, and children, all screaming in unison. It was the collective pain of every soul lost in that massacre, channeled into a single, unbearable sound. I clamped my hands over my ears, but it did nothing. The scream wasn't something you heard. It was something you felt. It ripped through my thoughts, showing me images, flickering scenes of fire, of fear, of a people betrayed. I saw the shaman's face, her eyes burning with a grief so profound it threatened to shatter my sanity. I fell to my knees, my own scream choked in my throat. I felt my mind starting to fray, to tear apart under the weight of so much historical pain. This was the true nature of the curse. It wasn't just a sound, it was an experience. A forced empathy so powerful it could drive a person mad. It made you a witness, a participant in the tragedy, night after night after night. I don't know how I made it out of there. I have a fractured memory of stumbling through the darkness, branches tearing at my clothes and skin, the echo of the wails still ringing in my skull. I burst out of the woods and collapsed on the road leading back to town just as the full moon rose. I've been back in my cottage for a week. I haven't left. I keep the curtains drawn day and night. The scream still comes every dusk, but for me it's different now. It's not just a noise from outside. It's a memory, an echo that lives inside me. I finally understand the look in the townspeople's eyes. It's not weariness, it's resignation. They know you can't run from the past, you can't shut it out, especially when it has a voice. I thought I came to Blackwood Creek to find peace and quiet, but what I found was a town held hostage by a sound. A town paying an eternal price for a crime committed centuries ago. My bags are packed, I'm leaving tomorrow. But I know, as I drive away, a part of me will stay here, trapped in the echo of that twilight scream. And I know that no matter where I go, every time the sun sets, I'll be listening for it,